My first biryani was a complete disaster, and my fifth one wasn't much better either. After 5 years of trial and error, I finally cracked the code to a perfect biryani. And today I'm going to share all the mistakes I made so you can avoid them completely. I wish this video existed when I started. Hi, I'm Roshni. I'm a fine dining private chef in Las Vegas, and I'm originally from Kolkata, so naturally, the Kolkata biryani is my favorite style. This is the first mistake I made. Imagine you spent hours making this biryani, and then you serve it and bite into it, and instead of this beautiful balance of flavors, you taste this harsh bitterness. You might think you added too much biryani masala, but the real problem is that you rush the process. Allow the onions to cook slowly to release their natural sweetness. If you rush the process, you're going to burn the onions, and that bitterness is going to permeate throughout the dish. You see, onions don't just form the garnish of a Kolkata biryani. They form the base of the flavor of the dish. And so it's important to treat them gently and carefully. If you want to avoid such mistakes and create consistent, authentic flavors with your family recipes, I invite you to join my program. The next common mistake is that most home cooks assume that more spices means more flavor. But that can overwhelm the other flavors in the Kolkata biryani, which has a subtle and refined flavor. When I started making biryani, my biryanis tasted like a spice cabinet explosion. I could only taste the flavors of the strongest spices in my spice mix, like cloves and cinnamon, and that completely threw off all the other flavors. The key here is not to add too much of the biryani masala, and to make sure that when you make or buy your biryani masala, it's something that you love and that the spices are balanced and harmonize with each other. You don't want one flavor dominating the entire dish. The other common mistake I see in the spice category is thinking that spices will enhance the flavor, but what you actually need is more salt. It's really important to season the rice properly, because the seasoning in the meat or the chicken is not enough for the entire dish when combined. The next mistake I see is with one of the most important elements of Kolkata biryani. A Kolkata biryani is just not a Kolkata biryani without this. Imagine you've spent hours making this biryani and you cut into the potato and you expect a fork tender texture and a flavorful aroma. However, it's disappointingly raw in the center, or worse, it disintegrates and becomes one with the dish. Many cooks assume that cooking the potato properly is about throwing it in at the beginning with the meat. It makes sense, right? It'll absorb the most amount of flavor and it'll become soft. But that's what leads to mushy potatoes, and I've made this mistake so many times. The key is to give the potatoes special attention. Cook it till about 90% done, and then take it out and continue with the rest of the recipe. When you know exactly how long your potato takes to cook, you can time everything perfectly so that your meat and potato and rice cook perfectly when you finally reveal the biryani. For me, it takes about 40 minutes, but it totally depends on the type of potato you're using, the pan, the heat level, and a lot of different factors. So test it and adjust. This ensures that they absorb those aromatic juices without disintegrating into the sauce. Let's move on to the next component of the biryani, the meat. You've spent hours cooking this meat, you've even marinated it, but when you bite into that piece of chicken, it's under-seasoned and lacks flavor. The solution to this is actually surprisingly simple. Make some small gashes in your chicken before you add it to the dish, and that allows the chicken to absorb all of the flavors. The other important thing is to use bone-in chicken whenever you can, because that bone packs so much flavor and really adds that depth of flavor that we associate with Kolkata chicken biryani. This is the most annoying mistake I've made, and I've made it so many times. You think you're going to cut into this biryani and the rice is going to be fluffy and fully expanded and with a beautiful aroma. But what actually happens is mushy rice clumped together. You might think that the rice needs to be cooked completely before you start layering your biryani. But the solution lies in understanding the dum cooking process. The rice continues to cook during the dum cooking process, so it's important not to fully cook it before you start layering it. I cook the rice to about 70% before I start layering my biryani. The rest of the 30% of the cooking happens during the dum cooking process, and that results in the fluffy, aromatic, beautifully separated rice grains that's characteristic of the Kolkata biryani. This next mistake took me a while to figure out. Your biryani looks beautiful, the rice is perfectly cooked, the chicken is perfectly seasoned, but when you taste the biryani, the flavors taste a little bit off. Now, yogurt is an essential ingredient in the biryani. Not only does it form the base of the sauce, it also helps to give the sauce its body and tenderizes the chicken or meat. I used to think that more of a good ingredient is better, but I was wrong. I was using too much yogurt, which resulted in a sour-tasting biryani. The Kolkata biryani has a subtle flavor, and therefore the balance of all of the ingredients is important. You want to balance the sourness of the yogurt with the sweetness from the caramelized onions. So restraint is key here. I was sabotaging myself with this mistake at the absolute end. You've cooked the rice perfectly, the meat is perfectly seasoned, you've balanced all the flavors, and yet when you taste the biryani, the rice is mushy and squished together. My perfectionist self was coming in the way of making a perfect biryani. Biryani is all about layers, and I assumed that all the layers need to be perfectly flat and even. So while layering, I would press the rice down hard with my spatula to make sure it's completely flat. What I realized is I was actually destroying all the hard work I put into making perfectly cooked rice for my biryani by pressing it down. By pressing it down, all the rice grains clumped together and completely ruined the texture characteristic of an elegant Calcutta biryani. So be gentle with your layers. They don't need to be perfect, and don't press them down too hard because we don't want to compact all the rice grains together. Just because you've cooked the rice perfectly, flavored the chicken appropriately, and gently created those beautiful layers does not mean that you're out of hot water yet. You taste your hours of hard work, and somehow the biryani flavors taste disconnected and it's dry. Now, most assume that you can just cook biryani the regular way, and I used to think that too. I would just use my regular lid and cook the biryani on high heat all throughout. However, that's where I made the mistake. The secret to dum cooking is making sure that your pot is perfectly sealed and a regular lid just doesn't do the job. You can use dough, but an easier way to achieve this effect is by using foil. This completely sealed, pressurized environment is what makes sure that the biryani remains moist while the flavors mingle with each other. The heat level also matters. For the first 10 minutes, I cook the biryani on high heat to generate steam. For the next 15 minutes, I cook it on low heat to allow the flavors to get to know each other. And for the last 10 minutes, I turn the heat off, allowing the biryani to cook on that residual heat. That ensures that you get a perfectly fluffy, moist biryani that has flavor in each grain. This last mistake seems simple, but it can ruin all your hard work right before you serve it. It's tempting to think that hot food should be served immediately, and that makes sense for most dishes, but not biryani. I would immediately dig into my biryani, expecting fluffy, fully expanded grains and beautiful layers. However, what would end up on my plate is a soggy mess. You see, what I was doing was disturbing the delicate structure of the rice grains by digging into the biryani too early. Patience is key with biryani, and you want to let the biryani rest for at least 10 minutes after cooking before you serve it. This pause allows the flavors to settle and moisture to redistribute properly, resulting in the hallmark texture of a Kolkata biryani, the masterpiece that you worked on for hours to create. All these attempts over the years taught me that biryani is not just a recipe. It's an art form that rewards attention to detail and patience. My biryani took years to perfect, but yours is just one video away. Watch my step-by-step tutorial on how to make a Kolkata biryani and astonish your friends and family with this beautiful masterpiece. And if you're serious about preserving your family's culinary traditions through these precious recipes, I invite you to join my program.